I still remember the exact moment everything began to unravel, the moment the fragile illusion of control shattered like glass in my hands. It was a rainy Thursday morning, the kind of day when the sky threatens storms and your gut tells you something is wrong. I sat alone in the executive suite of Summit Technologies, a company built on decades of trust and sweat, running through the reports on my laptop. What I saw made my blood run cold. A message pinged on my screen, an anonymous tip, encrypted but brutally clear. It exposed a conspiracy deep within our ranks. Altered financial statements, backdoor access to our secure systems, emails deleted to cover tracks. But worst of all was the knowledge that this wasn't a rogue employee acting out of desperation. It was a calculated, premeditated attack orchestrated by those we trusted most. I was Adam Calder, son of the man who had built Summit from the ground up. My father had always said, "Character is the real currency in business." But that day, I saw how easily character could be faked, how betrayal could wear the face of loyalty. The storm outside mirrored the chaos inside me. I called an emergency meeting. The boardroom filled with faces I'd known since childhood, people I had once considered family. But as I laid out the evidence, the room froze. Accusations flew, voices raised, but the cold truth cut through the noise. The sabotage was real, and it was devastating. Our chief financial officer, whom I had trusted like a brother, was implicated. So was the head of security, whose team had supposedly safeguarded our technology. It felt like a punch to the gut, a betrayal so deep it shook the very foundation of Summit. The company's future and mine was at stake. Outside the window, lightning cracked the sky. Inside, I realized that to save what my father built, I would have to dismantle everything I thought I knew. The old guard would fall and a new era would begin, but it would come at a human cost no spreadsheet could calculate. That day was the end of innocence and the start of a war for integrity. I knew the battle ahead would test me in ways I hadn't imagined, forcing me to confront family secrets, broken alliances, and my own capacity for forgiveness. But if there was one thing I learned from my father, it was this. In the darkest storms, the strongest roots hold firm. The fallout hit like a tsunami. The moment the boardroom revelations went public, everything we had built came under fire. Media frenzy, shaken clients, nervous investors pulling back. Summit Technologies, once a beacon of innovation and trust, now teetered on the brink of collapse. I couldn't afford to falter, not now. I had to act fast, decisively. I reached out to Elena Vasquez, a rising star in corporate governance known for her unyielding ethics and sharp intellect. Elena wasn't just a fixer. She was a storm in a suit, relentless and fearless. I appointed her as Chief of Integrity, an entirely new role designed to root out corruption and rebuild trust from the ground up. But change didn't come easy. We tore down the old leadership team. Those complicit in the sabotage were swiftly ousted, facing legal consequences and public disgrace. It was brutal to watch former friends and mentors reduced to names in headlines. Elena instituted a radical transparency system. Every financial move, every internal decision, every meeting would now have a permanent, auditable record. No exceptions. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, she told me on our first day, quoting a phrase my father had lived by but few had truly understood until now. I made a point to be more present than ever before. No more hiding behind closed doors or cryptic emails. I walked the floors, talked to employees from the IT geeks in the basement to the sales team on the 10th floor. Many were wary, carrying the scars of broken trust, but some dared to hope. At home, the personal toll was crushing. My marriage to Olivia, already strained, finally cracked under the weight of public scandal and private grief. The woman who had once been my partner in everything now kept her distance, her eyes full of questions I couldn't answer. Our son, Lucas, barely spoke to me for weeks, retreating into silence that felt colder than any boardroom betrayal. The hardest part was the realization that betrayal wasn't just a corporate wound. It cut through the very fabric of my family. My mother's quiet tears in the kitchen, my father's old friends who turned their backs. Even my closest confidants doubted if I could hold it all together. But I refused to let Summit fall. The technical team, led by a relentless engineer named Marcus Lee, was tasked with rebuilding our security infrastructure from scratch. Every line of code was dissected, reviewed, tested with obsessive precision. 3 months behind schedule, yes, but when the new platform finally launched, it was hailed as impenetrable, a fortress in a digital age riddled with threats. Yet, the scars ran deep. The employees who had trusted the old regime struggled to adapt to the new culture of accountability. Some left quietly, unable to face the new reality. Others stayed, fighting every change as if it was a personal attack. I understood their pain. Change is a betrayal of comfort, but the company's survival demanded more than loyalty to old ways. In one of the toughest decisions of my life, I had to sever ties with people I had once called family, including my sister, who had quietly sided with the saboteurs. That night, I sat in the dark, wondering if saving the company meant losing everything that mattered. But as I stared at the worn dashboard of my 1968 Chevy pickup, the only vehicle I'd ever driven to work, I found a strange comfort. The truck was battered, scratched, far from glamorous. But it was honest. Reliable. Like the company I was fighting to rebuild. And like me, it would survive the storm. Even as we rebuilt the company from the ashes, I knew the past wasn't done with me yet. Shadows lurked in unexpected places, waiting to pounce the moment I showed a sign of weakness. The board was divided, some members pushing for a quick sale to salvage what was left, others demanding deeper reforms. The pressure was relentless. Every meeting felt like walking a tightrope over a chasm. I could see it in their eyes: doubt, fear, sometimes outright hostility. Among them was Richard Mallory, the man who had been my father's closest friend and now my fiercest adversary. He believed the company had lost its way and wanted to take control for himself. One evening, after a grueling session, Richard cornered me in the hallway. His voice was low but cutting. "David, you're clinging to a sinking ship. Sometimes survival means letting go." His words hit me harder than I expected. I'd always seen him as an ally, but now he was the embodiment of everything I was fighting against. But surrender was not an option. Not now. Not ever. Outside the boardroom battles, the fight to reclaim our reputation was equally brutal. Social media attacks, smear campaigns, even anonymous threats. I received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photo of Lucas at school with a note: "Stay out of this or he pays the price." Fear clawed at me, but I refused to let it control my decisions. Instead, I hired private security for Lucas and increased personal safety measures for my family. The lines between personal and professional blurred, and the weight became almost unbearable. In the midst of chaos, there was an unexpected ally, Naomi Clark, a veteran journalist who had once been critical of Summit but now sought to tell our story fairly. She met with me multiple times, digging into the truth behind the scandal, uncovering the sabotage, and exposing the corrupt players. Her articles shifted public opinion subtly but significantly. For the first time since the crisis, I felt a flicker of hope in the court of public perception. At the company, Marcus's team faced a new challenge. The sabotage had been more sophisticated than we realized, a deep-rooted conspiracy that reached into our suppliers and partners. We had to audit not only our code but every handshake, every contract, every alliance. One discovery stunned us all: an old vendor with whom we'd had a decade-long partnership was linked to shell companies funneling data to unknown recipients. The betrayal cut deeper than anything else. How do you trust when trust is weaponized against you? It fell on me to make the call, sever ties with the vendor immediately, risking short-term chaos but ensuring long-term security. The fallout was messy: lawsuits, penalties, angry partners. But the message was clear: no compromise on integrity. Through it all, I learned more about who I was, who I wanted to be. The lonely nights in the office, the endless calls, the strategy sessions that stretched until dawn, they forged a new version of me. One less idealistic but far more determined. And yet, despite everything, there were moments of light. A handwritten letter from Lucas, found slipped under my door one morning. "Dad, I'm trying. I'm still here." It was small, fragile, but enough to keep me going. As the year turned, Summit Technologies was no longer just a company struggling to survive. It was becoming a symbol of resilience, of rebirth, of the fierce will to reclaim what was lost. But I knew the hardest battles were still ahead. The city lights blurred behind the windshield as I drove home late that night, the rumble of my old truck a steady companion through the quiet streets. 5 years had passed since the storm shattered everything I thought I knew: my family, my company, even myself. But as I looked into the rearview mirror, I saw more than the silver streaks threading through my hair. I saw resilience, hard-won and steady as the road beneath me. Summit Technologies was no longer just a company fighting for survival. It had become a symbol. a beacon for those who believed that honesty could thrive amid greed, and that integrity could be more than a buzzword. Yet this success was carved out of scars deeper than the eye could see. I remembered the early days after the boardroom revelations. The air was thick with suspicion. Colleagues once loyal now glanced with wary eyes. Whispers followed my every step, and every decision felt like a tightrope walk between rebuilding and total collapse. But we persisted. Della Conway's oversight system became the gold standard for corporate governance. What had begun as a necessary shield against sabotage blossomed into a culture of accountability. Transparency became a language we all spoke, not just a policy on paper. Quarterly compliance reports, once dismissed as tedious, became a source of pride, a testament that Summit had learned from its darkest chapter. Yet, behind the company's rising stock price and growing client roster, I grappled with personal reckonings that no board meeting could resolve. Jake, now 21, was no longer the silent ghost who once haunted our home. His summers spent interning in the IT department proved transformative. The boy who once carried the weight of betrayal on his shoulders now understood that his future was his own to build, not a shadow cast by his mother's choices or my broken past. At lunch one day, he looked across the table, eyes steady. "The trust fund's generous, Dad, but I want to earn my way, like you did." His words struck me, a blend of humility and determination. Watching him learn to code, navigate corporate security, and grasp the delicate balance between innovation and ethics was a quiet joy. He was reclaiming his narrative, shaping it with his own hands. Meanwhile, Lorena, my ex-wife, was a distant memory now. The luxurious life she once flaunted was replaced by the stark realities of a modest apartment in Valley Village. The corporate sabotage charges had effectively blacklisted her from the industry she once ruled. Her designer clothes sold to cover mounting debts. The Cartier watch, once a symbol of power, now lost to the hands of time. She sent fewer texts now, her attempts at connection waning under the weight of guilt and estrangement. I wondered if she saw the wreckage she left behind, or if denial still cloaked her reality. And then there was Paul Lloyd, the architect of our undoing, now locked behind the cold walls of a federal prison. His 7-year sentence was a bitter justice for the man who once walked Summit's halls with an air of invincibility. He had plenty of time to reflect on his failures, the security platform he sought to cripple now the industry's gold standard. It was almost poetic. The system he tried to destroy had grown stronger because of him. William Elliott's story was quieter but no less profound. Stripped of his wealth and prestige, he found solace in the simplicity of managing a hotel's nightly receipts. The man who once cooked the books now balanced the day's cash with honest hands. Sometimes redemption comes in the smallest acts. Sergio Russell, the exile, lived his hollow victory in a foreign land, cut off from everything he once knew. His failed ventures were a testament that stolen success can never build a lasting future. Marvin McDonald, who escaped prison by turning state's witness, taught coding to community college students in Oregon. None of them suspected the depth of his past. A man who had danced on the edge of one of the greatest corporate sabotage attempts in history. Back at Summit, the culture was irrevocably changed. The executive parking lot no longer boasted luxury cars but an eclectic mix of modest vehicles, including my old 1967 Ford pickup, a daily symbol of our commitment to authenticity over appearance. New hires were introduced to the dashcam footage during orientation, not as a tool of shame, but as a beacon of the truth that saved us. The raw, unfiltered moments captured by that small camera became a legend within the company, a constant reminder that transparency and integrity were not just policies, but lifelines. The story of our downfall and resurgence became required study material in business schools. Students dissected the ethical lessons and corporate governance reforms that emerged from the chaos. Summit's transformation was a case study in how character and courage can rebuild what greed tried to destroy. Personally, I had changed too. The lines around my eyes deepened, silver streaks multiplying as years pressed on. I never remarried, choosing instead to focus on the company and on Jake's growth. The betrayals had taught me to guard my heart more carefully, but they had also shown me the power of forgiveness and hope. One evening, as twilight bled into night, Jake arrived early for his internship, parking his own used pickup beside mine. "Thought I'd help you wash this weekend," he said with a grin that mirrored my own from years ago. We worked side by side, the sun catching the scratches on our truck's chrome bumpers, a testament to hard journeys and shared legacies. In that moment, the past and future merged in a quiet celebration of survival and renewal. Later, as I drove to the cemetery to visit my father's grave, the dashcam blinked steadily in the dusk. Its small red light was a humble witness to everything: the betrayals, the losses, the victories, and the quiet truths that endure beyond the noise. "Sometimes the simple things save us," I whispered to the fading light, the words my father had once shared echoing in my heart. Integrity, I understood now, was not just a virtue. It was a lifeline, a foundation, a promise fragile yet unbreakable. It was the thread that held together the tapestry of our lives, weaving strength through the darkest nights and hope into every new dawn. And as the city slept beneath a blanket of stars, I knew that whatever storms lay ahead, we were ready. Because truth, like the dashcam's vigilant eye, never sleeps. 5 years after the storm, the world around me had changed, but some things remained stubbornly constant, like that old Ford truck, resting faithfully in its spot, a relic of a simpler time that still carried the weight of a complicated past. People often asked why I refused to trade it for something newer, flashier. The answer was simple: the truck wasn't just a vehicle. It was a reminder. A reminder that integrity is not flashy or glamorous. It doesn't seek applause or spotlight. It quietly endures, sometimes unnoticed, always present, like the steady blink of a dash cam light recording truths others would rather hide. Summit Technologies was now a beacon in an industry where trust was a rare commodity. Our transparency had inspired countless others, and our story had become a case study taught in business schools worldwide. But beyond all the accolades, the real victory was the culture we built, one that valued people over profits, principles over power. Jake had grown into a man of his own making, shaped not by the mistakes of the past but by his own hard work and choices. Watching him drive his own used pickup truck, arriving early to start his internship beside me, filled me with a quiet pride. He embodied the future I had fought to protect, grounded, honest, and determined. Lorena was a shadow in that past life, a poignant reminder that appearances can deceive and that some bridges, once burned, are impossible to rebuild. Her story was a cautionary tale of ambition without conscience. As for those who betrayed us, their fates varied. Some found redemption in humility, others in exile or punishment. But none escaped the truth that integrity, once broken, casts a long shadow. On quiet mornings, I still found myself sitting in the truck, parked near my father's grave, reflecting on everything that had been lost and rebuilt. His words, "Sometimes the simple things save us," echoed louder now than ever before. This story, our story, is not just about corporate battles or personal betrayals. It's about what happens when we choose to stand for something greater than ourselves, when we let truth guide our actions even when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or costly. The dash cam's light still blinks steadily, a silent witness to every ordinary moment and every extraordinary choice. Because truth, like integrity, doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be faithful. And in that faithfulness lies our legacy, a light that will guide those who come after us through their own storms, reminding them that no matter how dark the night, the simple, steady glow of honesty can lead the way home.